You know, the average price of gas in Idaho dropped a whole penny between yesterday and today. We're now down to $5.20 a gallon. That's 55 cents above the national average and still the seventh highest price per gallon in the country. But hey, it's progress, right? We're talking about a trend downwards, which is what we started talking about yesterday. This dramatic drop in prices over the course of the last month. Not so much here in Idaho, but, overall across the country. But we have seen a little bit here. And we got a couple of messages about the numbers we threw out yesterday, like this text from Jack, who asked, "We all know gas prices are high. It'd be nice, though, and informative to know who gets what when we pay for gas." And this one from Diana, who says, "On gasoline from crude to my tank, what is the actual cost at each distribution point? Where's the most profit taken? Refinery, distributor, station owners, taxes? Who should we be mad at?" Well, I'm guessing there's enough anger to go around these days, considering how much you've had to pay to fill your tank the last several months. But the answer to those questions, well, those can easily be found at Idaho's own Attorney General website. There, they have a breakdown they put together on a regular basis. This is one from February, the most recent one, February of this year, before the price of gas really got going, by the way, when the national average was about $3.50 a gallon, and we were paying $3.45 a gallon here in Idaho. Their data is from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. It looks like this. It all starts with the cost of crude oil, the costliest part of a gallon of gas. Finding the oil, getting it out of the ground, and getting it to the refineries. And that accounts for about 64% of the cost of a $3.45 gallon of gas, or about $2.20 of that. The cost of turning crude oil into gasoline, that'd be the refining part, and the retail cost and profit margins for those companies that do that, well, that adds up to about 21%, or 74 cents a gallon, according to Idaho. Then come the taxes, the part that pay for roads and such. We pay 10% to Idaho and 18% to the feds. So about, 51 cents total in taxes on a gallon of gas. But again, those are February numbers. Digging around the Energy Information Administration website, we found this breakdown, more recent one, from May, when the national average was $4.44. They say 59% of the cost of crude oil, that's where that comes from. 26% goes to refining, and 5% to distribution and marketing, 11% going to taxes. The diesel breakdown is on the right there, with a little bit bigger chunk toward distribution and marketing. Then, of course, when it comes to regular gasoline. Okay, so about those margins. To answer Diana's question about who gets the most profit when it comes to a gallon of gas, there's an explanation of this done by a tax consulting firm recently called RSM, and they pulled their information also from the Department of Energy. They went back and looked at the price of gas during recent select periods over the last 14 or so years, starting with the Great Recession in 2008 through last month. And take a look at the margins for retail, refining, and the cost of crude oil. The crude oil is in blue. That's the cost of crude oil. Refining margins are in orange. Retail margins are in gray. The last time gas was this high was in July of 2008. That's when crude oil cost, as you can see there on that far left graph, in blue, it was a lot more of the per gallon of gas. The refining margin was much lower then. How about in the early days of the pandemic? That would be the second from the right there, or third from the right, excuse me. That would be in June of 2020. Refining margins jumped a lot then. Retail margins were up a bit, and the cost of crude was way down at that time because, we were using much, and so they cut back on production. Last month, under the Ukraine spike, that'd be the far right graph there, the cost of oil is up about $2.50 a gallon over a 3-month average. The refinery margin rebounded to pandemic proportions there, and retail, not as much over as other moments over time. You can see the breakdown there and where most of your gallon of gas costs are going, and that's the profit margin there. So where is your $5.20 going? Mostly to the cost of oil to get it out of the ground, but a decent profit goes to the refinery companies, of which southern Idaho is served by just one in Utah. Gas stations, they do make a pretty penny, just not as much as others, and not as much as in February, but still a pretty steady number over the last 14 years.